right, welcome to GothCast. I am Dr. Sanders.
And I'm just Bryan.
As episode 49. And this is... Bryan, this episode is going to be crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you could even say it's going to be psycho.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You got exactly where I was going with that. That's awesome. This is going to be our episode dedicated to memorable series. Most people, I guess, don't even really know that it's technically a movie series. Most people just know the first film.
Yeah.
Just Psycho.
They don't know about all 5 of them.
Yeah, right. And we'll talk more about that in a second. But this is going to be a review of the first 3 Psycho films. And I guess if we ever do another episode, we'll probably do
We could do 4 or 5 in the TV series.
We'll do 4, the Bates Motel 80s movie, and then the TV series. Yeah. It's like...
Oh, that's right. They had Bates Motel.
They had a Bates Motel in the 80s.
I thought that was number 5. I thought that was number 4. Oh, and then the remake. Wait.
Oh, we can do the remake.
No, man.
I forgot about that. Yeah, there's even more than I didn't even think. Yeah, the remake is... Oh, the remake's just... okay. Yeah. Well...
We'll do something.
Yeah. If we ever do part 2 of Psycho. I mean, I think we should. I mean, might as well just finish it. But anyway, one thing I wanted to mention too, I'll put this at the beginning of this podcast, is we are having a giveaway for a Goth doll.
They're very cool.
They are cool. It's right there.
Oh, yeah, that's the one right there.
Yeah.
You can't see it, but I can because I'm in the room with Donnie.
Exactly.
Maybe he'll put a picture up while we're talking about it.
I did in the video version of the podcast. Did you see it? Yeah, I did that. We're having a giveaway. Just remind everybody, we will announce it with the release of episode 50. In that episode, you can win a Series 5 Annabelle Lee Goth doll. It is 12 inches. It has some crazy contacts and looks generally extremely spooky. And we will mail it to you. All you have to do is go onto iTunes and leave a review. I mean, any review, any amount of stars, anything. We have some people who've entered, and we look forward to, I don't know, giving them things.
Yeah. We actually haven't had a whole lot of people enter, which means that if you put a review up, your chances are pretty good.
It's true. Yeah. So I recommend it.
Yeah, I mean they're among the cooler of the goth dolls I've ever seen.
I agree. They actually look sort of like genuinely goth, not just
like somebody put goth clothes on a Bratz doll.
You talking about Monster High?
Yeah, I'm talking about Monster High.
So I knew exactly where you go with that. Yeah, that definitely can be how they look sometimes.
Not to, there's Monster High stuff that looks cool too, but yeah, it absolutely does have that style, that same style as the Bratz dolls.
Yeah, and these look more like what a 90s version of a goth doll would look like. It's pretty cool. I like it. Anyway, so just go on to iTunes, leave a review, and then we'll read it, and you'll be entered. That's pretty much it. I mean...
That's how that works.
Yeah. So, on to the main meat of the episode, the meaty meat. That sounded really weird when I said that. But we're going to be talking about the Psycho series. It's really strange to think that this is has so many films. I think some of them are maybe a little bit underrated. And by today's, everybody only cares really about the first movie and Bates Motel. I mean, let's be honest. That's pretty much what a majority of people listening to this are going to be familiar with. Let's start with Psycho.
Okay.
Bryan, is Psycho based on a book?
It is. It absolutely is. In fact, Alfred Hitchcock not only bought the rights for cheap, but then he went out and bought all the copies he could to prevent people from knowing what the ending was going to be.
Yeah, he purchased the film rights anonymously for, it's like less than $10,000 or something.
Yeah.
Alfred Hitchcock was pretty infamous for doing things like that, where he knew if he got it out there that, hey, I'm interested in making this movie or whatever, then everyone would go buy whatever the property is and then just spoil it for themselves. And all his movies were about the moment where it's like a reveal and stuff. And
Alfred Hitchcock paved the way for M. Night.
It's modern Hitchcock.
Yeah. How can I make a twist? How can I shock the heck out of people at the end?
Sometimes I actually heard that's one of the reasons people have some. Okay, well, actually, I'll get into this when I'm talking about Psycho. But the book was released in 1959, and I don't think it was. I mean, it was well known, but I don't think it was obviously like the way it is now. But Robert Bloch, I think that's how you say his name, or Robert Bloch. I don't know, Bloch. He's the original author of the book, and he'll be coming up in some other movies here. But this was a real departure for Hitchcock at the time. Now, you got to remember, this is 1960, so this movie was obviously extremely shocking for a number of reasons. But for Hitchcock, it's strange in that, the previous movie was North by Northwest, and it's full color. It had comedic elements. It was, kind of like a mystery, drama, comedy, action sort of thing.
Pretty big budget.
Yeah, and that's a great movie. I mean, I absolutely love Hitchcock stuff. And, in 58, you had Vertigo come out. And, one of the first movies to use, like, computer generation for the title screens. And, again, great use of color. It was pretty groundbreaking at the time. A pretty interesting thing, but for this film, Alfred Hitchcock really slimmed down the production. I mean, it's black and white. The music was obviously very important, like his other films, but even the story, I mean, if you break down the plot, it's pretty simple. I mean, there is that mystery and the kind of air as to the characters really what drives it, just like most of his films, but it doesn't have necessarily some of those elements that he became so popular for. And I think it was supposed to be a departure for him at this time. And one of the things I think people don't realize, I guess nowadays, is seeing that like, oh, people like, oh, Psycho was in 1960 and that's in black and white, so everything was in black and white. It's like no, it wasn't. No, we had one of my favorite movies of all time is Wizard of Oz, and that was released in the 30s. We had full, especially by the 50s, we were pretty much on to color. I mean,
and Wizard of Oz was Technicolor, which actually was a 3-part black and white film reconstruct, which is really cool. The technology behind that we'll get into another time, but I mean that's how far advanced they had it. Like, they were actually doing tricolor recording back then, so they could do RGB reconstruction. Yeah.
And that was in the 30s, so you gotta imagine. And there was a lot of different companies that were trying to make, different Technicolor knockoffs and. A lot of different companies. I know Disney had their own kind of supplier, and that's not important. We're getting into like super film nerd stuff.
Yeah.
But
resolution, man, resolution is super. Okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I know, right. When you upscale it,
4K.
You got to buy the film reel. Anyway, so Psycho, in a lot of ways, was a real big departure for people, and especially going into the genre that Hitchcock did. It has the elements of a kind of sexual energy to it. Kind of the tabooness, the fear of police, the twist, the MacGuffin. It has a lot of those Hitchcock elements, but it was kind of a slimmed down sort of version of that. And, of course, basically helped invent the slasher genre, or like one of the stepping stones to what we know as like modern horror for that time. I gotta say, it's still today, it's a pretty eerie film.
Yeah, it holds up.
It really does. And I'm pretty sure every time, and it had been a while since I'd seen Psycho again. I mean, it had been probably at least 2 years since I had actually sat down and watched this. I was pretty surprised. I always expect, older films, even some, don't get me wrong, like some elements of Hitchcock's films, they do feel dated in the way that people talk and stuff, and almost a little too much, where it almost takes you out of it. I don't know. I got really into this just watching it again, and I think a lot of that has to do with the acting, and then the music just makes it.
Yeah, I noticed. Because it's an older film, I'm not sure if it was just a style thing, for the time, but it did seem like there was a lot of exposition. There's a lot of leading into each scene. They kind of linger to establish the shot and tell you where you're at and who's involved and everything before they really get into anything that's happening in the scene.
Yeah.
And I don't really feel like that's, been done anymore. Either it's a problem with audience patience, or they're just trying to cram so much into each film, like a director's cut being 3.5 hours long or whatever, and not of this film, but just in general.
Yeah.
There's so much they're trying to put into it. I think they don't really have time for that.
Yeah.
The pacing is a heck of a lot slower than you would expect.
I know, yeah.
A horror film to be, but it has a lot of really good psychological impact because of the pacing.
Yeah. They linger a lot on establishing shots. Like there's a large part of this movie, at least the first 30 minutes or so, there's a lot of driving, the character pulling into an area and then kind of interacting with characters there and then driving away and stuff, and kind of let it go. Like kind of let it, you really like, okay, here's where they are, and they don't just rush everything. And it's funny because this movie's an hour and 48 minutes, which seems pretty small by today's standards, but at the time, that was a pretty long runtime.
Yeah. I mean, it takes 25 minutes really for them to just get to the hotel.
Yeah, I know.
So it's a pretty long introduction to the characters that you're going to be seeing, or character, I should say, that you're going to be seeing at first. Yeah. They're trying to build the emotional connection there.
And let me tell you about the characters, right? Let me do a basic plot breakdown. I guess we're kind of assuming a little bit in this first part there that you've sort of seen Psycho, or a little bit about what the story to Psycho is.
It's been like 60 years, so if these are going to be spoilers for you, that's your fault.
Yeah, I think I've said it before, many times, every single movie episode. There's gonna be spoilers. Like I don't hold back on spoilers. I'm reviewing the whole movie, and pretty much every movie I've ever reviewed is really old, other than some documentaries. So yeah, well, the basic story of Psycho is that there's this woman, Marion Crane, and she steals some money. She steals $40,000,
enough to buy a house.
Yeah,
at the time.
Yeah, well, I think today it's like over 300,000. Yeah, it's like something crazy like that, and so that's a ton of money. In her life, she's been super reliable. She's had like the same banking job forever, and like you never really find out why she steals the money. You never know. And like I said, it's gonna be spoilers. Like I've just in case you haven't seen Psycho for some reason, I would just recommend going out and watching the first 3 Psycho movies that you're here to talk about. But she flees with this money, and for about the first half hour, we don't even really see Norman Bates until about almost a half hour into the film, where she's just trying to flee with this money. And she has a boyfriend, whatever, doesn't tell him. She has a sister, doesn't tell her, doesn't tell her about, just gets the money and leaves. And when she shows up to Bates Motel, she meets Norman Bates. I think you can get where this is going. And she is stabbed to death in a shower. And you think that it may have been for the money or something like that, but it wasn't. Norman just throws away the money, like not even knowing it's there, and goes on with like the movie. So it's like there's this whole build up for the first half hour of this movie where it's like, what's going to happen to the money? Like, who's going to steal it? Who's going to do whatever?
Yeah, as if the money is going to be the driving force in the movie.
Yeah, and then Norman just throws it away. And then the movie just shifts to a whole different type of thing. And everyone thinks it's about the money, but for Norman, it's not about the money. And yeah,
that kind of throws the cops off.
Yeah, it's kind of a basic breakdown, but that's sort of what the first part of the movie is basically Marion Crane stealing the money and then meeting Norman Bates, and then Norman Bates doing his thing. Then the mystery as to everyone's trying to figure out what happened to her. It's hard to describe necessarily the plot because it just shifts. It's just so weird because you expect it all to be about this one thing, and it's totally not about it at all.
Yeah, they spend so much time talking about the money and Marion and the thoughts. You like hear the thoughts going on in her head, people talking and what they're gonna think and all this other stuff, and she's dead.
Yeah, I know. And you gotta remember, that's one of the things I always remember this, that I had a friend who was really into horror movies. I mean, like really into, but it was all like the really gory stuff. I mean, like we're talking like I don't know if the Japanese,
like Ichi the Killer kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay. And he saw Psycho. He'd never seen it. When he saw it, he's like, it wasn't even that scary. He's like, I knew Norman Bates killed her. I'm like, yeah, like that's so yeah. And he's like, well, how's it scary then? And I was like, it's not. I think you totally missed the point of this movie. It's like it's a suspense film. It's about how the events unfold, about playing with the audience's expectations, and it was. Just didn't understand the point of it at all, and couldn't. You got. I mean, if that's your thing, if you're into the super gory, super action packed
jump scares,
yeah, this is not it. This is like a total psychological film, a suspense film, and almost like almost a character study in being a creep, like some ways. But,
yeah, and we still don't really know how much of it is Norman being creepy or being insane.
That's total. Yeah. That's a really good point. And Norman Bates is portrayed by Anthony Perkins, and it defined his career. I mean, I'll put that way.
To the extent that he directed and starred in the third one.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that one. But
yeah,
he just plays creepy so well.
He can go from innocent to creepy and really back again. Yeah, real smoothly.
There's like a whole thing in the parlor when they're eating the sandwiches and stuff.
Oh yeah,
and up to the point, like when you first meet Norman, you're like, oh, he's like
wholesome, kind of.
Yeah, charming. Oh, he's sheltered, sort of thing. And they're having a conversation, and he just turns on Marion like just a second, and you really believe it. In fact, it's so tense. Like older film, like you really get into it still. I mean, just the acting is great, and I don't know how much of that was Anthony Perkins being kind of crazy or what, but he just really just sold the character, because anytime he's interacting with the other people, you just get the weird feeling that he just isn't comfortable. Like he's trying really hard, or he just doesn't get it. And there are scenes in the movie after he murders Marion Crane, we kind of get a moment with him. And we don't get too many in the movie where it's like just him. And we kind of get the, cleaning up the kind of what's going through his head a little bit sort of moment. And that little bit of the movie that's just him, it's so creepy. Like it's just so weird.
Blood.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. There's blood.
Blood.
Oh, my God. Mother blood. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff.
The whole thing about Norman, obviously, is that Norman loves his mother. And he says his mother is very ill.
But it turns out she's fine.
Yeah, she's totally... She just returns from vacation at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Turns out she's dead. Norman kills her. That was the whole... Oh, man.
They should do a Psycho 6 Weekend at Bernie style.
Oh, man. I'm going to talk about that. There's something related. They were going to make...
It's just like two people going on a murderous rampage with a dead
They were going to do... Psycho 4 was... Anthony Perkins pitched it to the director saying, I want it to be a comedy where there's like a psycho amusement park type thing, and Norman escapes and then gets hired to play himself.
Was this before he shot number 3?
This was after he shot... Yeah, no, right? It was after he shot number 3. God, that was...
We'll get there.
Yeah, it's sick. So yeah, Norman's really creepy. Anthony Perkins plays him so well. A lot of the other characters, I mean, don't get me wrong, everyone in this movie is acted really well, but it's not surprising that Anthony Perkins was singled out as being like just...
Yeah, he did such a great job.
I mean, just the character just has so many different mood swings and different things, and he plays them all perfectly.
Yeah, he sells it all.
And none of it is cliched. Like the detective and stuff in here is kind of a cliche character in that, like, I'm gonna track down the money. What are you doing? Hey, like it's kind of a detective. And Norman didn't really have that archetype didn't really exist in film at the time.
I wouldn't know. I wasn't born yet.
Shh, I was like 35.
Oh, I mean, I'm immortal and ancient, and
there we go.
Okay. I just didn't know what to say to that. I mean, sure, you're right. Donnie, you're right.
Thanks.
Yeah. You just cut out the rest of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there was the infamous shower scene that's been parodied a million times.
Oh, yeah. It's an iconic scene. Yeah. Not only the actual stabbing scene itself, but the music from the scene. You play that, and anybody who has been in pop culture at all knows what that is, and even if they have never seen the movie.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's pretty unsettling even today. And I know, okay, it doesn't seem that scary if you just go on YouTube, watch the clip, and that's it, right? But in the context of the film, the build-up and stuff is just so good. And because you get into the atmosphere of the film, when it's happening, it kind of catches you off guard, because the movie's just like a mystery kind of, why'd she doing, almost like a little bit of a heist sort of thing. But then all of a sudden there's like this brutal stabbing.
Yeah, and it's completely unexpected because you're only like half an hour into the movie, and they spent most of that half hour with the character that's being killed.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's shocking in that respect too, because you wouldn't expect the main character to be killed off.
Yep. And it was really a shock, at the time. I mean, it's crazy.
Well, for more than that too, nudity wasn't allowed in films back then, but Alfred Hitchcock got away with it anyway.
Well, he's Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah.
And he pretty much had the studios, especially with North by Northwest, he was people forget Vertigo was a failure, one wasn't a failure, but it didn't do that great at the box office. And then North by Northwest was kind of his redemption. And then he's like, "Oh, I'm just gonna do what I think's good." There's actually symbolic coloring with Janet Leigh's brassieres in the beginning when.
Oh yeah.
In the beginning, before she does like steals the money and everything, she's wearing like a white bra, and then after she steals the money, she has like a black one on.
Her purse too.
Purse.
Yeah.
So, some you didn't. What's that famous line? You didn't notice it, but your brain did. Oh, it also was the first film to show a toilet flushing.
Oh, that's right.
It's crazy. It's right there. I always think the lines in this, because the whole thing is that Norman, loves his mother.
Yeah.
And by the way, the end, I guess just in case you don't know, Norman dresses up as mother and tries to kill everybody. That's kind of what the revealing plot is that Norman dresses up as his dead mother. And he's preserved his mother. He killed his mother, and then he preserved her rotting corpse. It's all dried and decaying. But
yeah,
he dresses up as his mother, and that kills people. That's the whole thing about the movie. There's some really good lines in there because Norman dresses up as his mother. When Marion Crane's talking to him, he goes, "Oh, your mother's sick?" And he goes, "Oh, she isn't quite herself today." And then he's talking to him like, "Oh, well, do you like your mother?" And like, he's like, "Oh, I love my mother." He goes, "A boy's best friend is his mother." So it's just like, oh, that's pretty, like, in the context of already knowing what happens, it's like so hilarious.
Yeah. I thought it was funny too when Marion comes in and he's like, "Oh, I was about to eat," and he's like, here's have a sandwich, and then she's like, "Don't you want any?" And he's like, No, it's all for you. I'm not hungry.
Yep. I love it.
But yeah, there's a lot of interesting technical stuff going on in the movie too.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always been some good technical stuff with Hitchcock.
Yeah.
But just the use of the focus depth, really impressive, especially for the time. Trying to get somebody very focused in a very small field of focus, and then have everything in the background be out of focus when you're trying to shoot on 35 mil or whatever. Really difficult to do well and still have everything look as clean as it does.
Yeah.
And they nailed it.
Yeah. I think some standout shots are, well, some of the most famous shots are, one, the shower head, where it's like the shot of the shower head.
Yeah.
And then the water pouring out, which I guess he built some special rig to even get that shot.
It was like a 6-foot shower head or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so that the camera wouldn't get wet.
Yeah. And then they had the shot where Marion's just murdered and she's laying on the bathroom floor, like her face. That's another one. And then
the transition of the blood circling the bottom of the bathtub, transitioning to her iris, that was really well done.
Yeah, still today that's like amazing.
Yeah.
And then the famous stair murder.
God, I hate those.
I mean, that's just like, you don't like that shot?
No, man. The stair murder in this one, and in number 3.
Oh, yeah.
Both. I don't know. It's so jarring to me. It pulls me out of it. It just feels so.
Well, the one thing that gets me about it is the sound effect for when the detective gets stabbed in the head in this one. It doesn't make sense with the way it's like he's moving. It's like like the steps. I'm like, that doesn't line up with the way he's falling. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me.
It just seems like he wasn't falling down the stairs. He was shot down the stairs.
And it was also like it was a slope instead of actual stairs.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
but you gotta, it's all practical effects, right? I mean, you gotta give them credit for all the stuff that they're achieving and accomplishing here, because when you're thinking about 1960, all of the different shots they're doing are really impressive, and the use of the changing camera angles and all of that. It's incredibly well done. But yeah, the stairwell, my notes say amazingly bad stairwell.
That's
stairwell
funny.
Fall. Yeah.
That's funny because that's such a famous shot.
Well, my suspension of disbelief is challenged in that scene every time I see it.
Well, there's like, if you want to see a really good stair murder sequence, I recommend The Curse of Frankenstein from the 50s. That's like one of the best stair murder ever. Well, it's kind of banister. It's still near the stairs.
Oh, and the audio work, too. I forgot. Hitchcock removed the bass frequencies from Norman's voice when he's speaking as his mother.
Oh.
So he seems more feminine. And then also, apparently, multiple actors voiced Norma
Yeah.
And he just picked out who sounded the best for that particular scene.
Yeah, actually, the actress continued till the end, like till they died.
Yeah.
All the way up to number 4, and then they had a different person for number 4. But yeah, whenever they punch in the one voice, the very distinctive voice, it was like the same. It's like a reoccurring actor. I don't know.
I think either one's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's great. And of course, it's had a lot of boycotts, a lot of controversies and everything. Oh yeah, one of the things is Hitchcock actually wanted to film a movie, like a scene in Disneyland later. And Walt Disney said, "Nah, you made Psycho." Like,
yeah, I don't remember what ended up happening with that beef, but apparently that lasted a long, long time between them.
Yeah, well, I think probably Walt Disney thought he was tainting
the image of the brand.
Yeah. It's like, nah, ain't gonna happen.
Overall, great movie, great dialogue. The dialogue pacing is really good. The story and plot pacing is well done for the time. I think you have to give the allowance of, being done as a slower psychological thriller.
I still think, I mean, even if the beginning is slow. I mean, I gotta give that. I can't really even argue that. Is that the beginning? Because you got to think about, like, if you don't know what the movie is. Like, I know what the movie is, so it doesn't feel that slow to me, right? But if I had never seen Psycho, and it was my first time watching it, that beginning part where you don't know what she's gonna do, and there's the whole thing about her and her boyfriend, and also, it feels slow. But like once she flees and kind of that gets going, like once the cop shows up and stuff, it picks up. But it's
you start to feel the tension then.
Yeah. But that whole beginning part, it's hard because I'm years later, it's like I can't unsee the movie because it's like, oh, I know this is still helping to build up for what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
But I remember when I was first watching it, or I don't know, like maybe, but it just feels slow. I know people stop watching because they're like, oh, it's black and white, this is slow. Like, it's not scary. I'm like, what? People. But yeah, there's a lot of movies from even the next decade, into the 70s that are paced way worse than this. So, yeah.
Oh, that's true.
Anyway.
Good movie. If you haven't seen it, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, right? You can get it on a million different formats, and I recommend them all. Like most Alfred Hitchcock movies, you will probably actually have to buy it in some capacity to actually watch it. Like, most of his movies don't end up on Netflix or any of those things for free. So, it's like, if you want to watch Psycho, you probably have to purchase it on, like, the Amazon streaming or like a DVD or Blu-ray or something, yeah.
Chances are, if you're listening to this, you probably have a friend who owns it.
That's probably true.
Ask around.
Yeah.
And then buy it.
Oh, snap.
When you realize how good it is.
Anyway, that's Psycho. And
this is going to be that 4-hour episode today.
God, yeah. But anyway, it's really good. So go watch it. Okay, welcome to Random Interesting Goth Stuff.
AKA Riggs.
And today we have some stuff, I guess,
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Kind of random.
Stuff? Yeah.
Stuff. Okay,
one I wanted to mention is, if you like old ministry, I'm talking like With Sympathy, Every Day's Halloween Ministry, you can actually now listen to a great release. It's Ministry Chicago 1982, and it's a live concert from that time, from that era before they went, the way most people know Ministry. I know especially a lot of people who listen to this podcast really prefer Ministry as a synth pop band, and the recording quality on this thing is pretty crazy for what, like you would expect it to be really crappy. But man, some of the quality is almost better than some of the official music they've done. But it's really good. If you want to hear actual live versions of like Effigy, Revenge, Same Old Madness, like.
Is this a cleaned up bootleg or what?
I don't know. I mean, it's definitely soundboard. Probably something like that. The vinyl version already sold out. It was released this month, and you can go listen to it on Bandcamp as a Bandcamp exclusive for a physical release, I guess. But you can go get it on Bandcamp, so it's great.
Sounds really good. We just listened to it.
Yeah, it's awesome. And by the way, if you haven't listened to With Sympathy, I'm assuming most people listening to this have. Go listen to it. There's an episode on Ministry, actually. I did one with Robbie Gore a while ago, and it's really good. So I mentioned that. Get some music for you guys. What do we got next, huh?
Well, we got World Goth Day coming up.
That's right.
May 22nd.
May 22nd. That's right.
So, get all your gear ready, your makeup, everything. Party it up, live it up.
Do it.
Celebrate. Take some pictures.
Usually a lot of events going on that weekend.
What else we got?
One thing I want to mention was Beetlejuice the musical.
Yeah. Why is that funny?
I just think I don't know. I'm not that much of a musical person, right? I like Little Shop of Horrors, and I know the Addams Family musical is supposed to be pretty good. I actually have listened to that, and they did a really good job with it. Beetlejuice the musical, it's getting pretty good reviews. It's I think it's exclusively on like Broadway right now, but it's getting rave reviews, and it delves into like Lydia's grieving stuff of like her original mom, because it's supposed to be like her stepmom in Beetlejuice, which isn't that pronounced in the movie.
Yeah.
But it's supposed to be pretty good.
Yeah, apparently the actress playing Lydia has been a fan of Beetlejuice since she was a little kid. 13 years after
I know.
it was made.
Yeah, I read that same article where she's like,
Daily News. Yeah.
She's like, I used to watch it on DVD. I'm like,
right.
Oh.
In her mom's vintage store. Yeah.
Oh. Well, hey, I mean, that's what happens. I think about, you got to remember, anyone born in 2000 is like 19 years old. But anyway, I thought that was interesting. Beetlejuice musical. Go check it out. It's been getting like, for some reason it keeps showing up in every freaking feed I have on every social media.
Oh, it's not like they're targeting you or anything.
Oh, wait a second. Brian.
What?
Are you telling me they're following me?
Man, I've got so much news for you. Yeah. We going to talk about Goth Crocs?
No.
Okay. All right.
So
well, that takes care of that.
That's pretty much random interesting Goth stuff. Just kind of random amalgamation of stuff. I think we made up for it with the last episode having a 5-hour-long random interesting Goth stuff. But yeah, anyway, check out Ministry's live 1982 release. It honestly is really crazy. I think the sound quality is freaking ridiculous. Beetlejuice the musical. Oh, and a new Crow comic book came out.
Yeah.
That's right.
It's a crossover. Hack and slash from sci-fi. Just in case you're into the Crow. I mean, it's like, what, 25 years? Yeah, 25 years of Alex's portrayal of the Crow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
New Crow comic book.
Not portrayal. You know what I mean.
I know what you mean. Alex Proyas.
Yeah.
His version, his film of an adaptation of the Crow.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think the initial comic was just like, 89 or something, but really good. I did actually see that at the store not that long ago. I'm going to wait till volume comes out. Anyway, that's random interesting Goth stuff.
Hope you found it interesting.
Now we're on to a time when sequels were named very appropriately. Psycho 2.
Electric Boogaloo.
Oh, gosh. It was 22 years later. And that's what's most important here. This sequel was produced in 1983 is when it was released. But it was obviously filmed throughout 1982. And it takes place 22 years after the original. And you have Anthony Perkins returning as Norman Bates. And you also have Vera Miles, who was in the first film, returning as Lila Loomis. And pretty crazy that they managed to get these people to be in this
22 years later.
Yeah, and you think with that, right? Especially in today's world where everybody is like, sequels, like it should always just be just the one or whatever. You would think in a time when like, sequel to Psycho, it's going to be totally phoned in. It's going to suck. I don't think it does. I think it's a great film. And there's a lot of people who really enjoy it. And what do you think?
Well, I think like you and another friend of ours, I prefer it to the original.
Oh, yes. I do. In fact, I've said this before. I think I said this on stream before. that I do in fact prefer Psycho 2 to Psycho 1.
Yeah.
And a lot of reasons. I'm going to talk about that. It's not, I mean, you know, all I did in the last section was just gush about how good Psycho is. So that kind of tells you. The thing about Psycho 2 is that it's totally different. I mean, it is a psychological horror film, but it's a totally different feel.
Oh, yeah.
And Anthony Perkins did try to have a career outside of Psycho. And he did appear in a few different roles. And actually, what's so weird is one of the ones that a lot of people mention is he was in a movie called The Black Hole. Or I think it's called Black Hole. It was a Disney film. And it was essentially Disney's version of 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's this really trippy sci-fi film that tries to have elements of like, I think maybe Star Wars had been out, but it was like 2001. It has like these goofy robots and all stuff, but it's like really dark. But he did a whole bunch of stuff, and a lot of people think that he came back to Psycho because it was like that's all anybody asked him for, right? Might as well take advantage of it.
Yeah.
I mean, what?
Sorry, I'm cracking up, man, because you're like, oh, it's really dark, and all I can think about is, well, it's because light can't escape a black hole, Donnie.
Oh, God. It's awful. I like it.
Anyway.
Yeah. But this movie should, by all accounts, be terrible. I mean, it really should. You know,
it has no right to be as good as it is.
Yeah, and there was again, I told you I was going to bring up the author of the original Psycho, and sure enough, there was a Psycho 2 book that was released the year before in 1982. Doesn't have anything to do with the movie. They were like, no, let's do our own thing.
Yeah.
And basically the plot is it takes place 22 years after the first one. And at the end of the last movie, after Norman is about to kill Lila Loomis, he's stopped and then he's institutionalized. And at the beginning of Psycho 2, he's just getting out of prison or like a mental institution. They say, oh, you've been reformed. You're good. It's been 22 years. Here's the Bates Motel. Go do whatever. Here's a job. Now you're back to normal.
Yeah. Within the first few minutes, you know who the main character is and why you should care about the main character, even if you haven't seen the first movie.
Yeah. And they kind of do like a little recap and kind of, if you haven't seen it, they kind of catch you up on here's what happened.
There's some flashbacks and stuff.
Yeah. And it works really well. And it's a weird film in that they make you so sympathetic towards Norman.
Oh, yeah.
Which is so funny because in the first one, at some points in the first movie, you may feel a little sympathy towards Norman because he kind of seems like a timid character. Like when he's talking to the detective and stuff, and it's like, oh, well, maybe, you know, he's kind of feel like he's not as tough as him or anything. But he's not necessarily that sympathetic of a character in the first one. You're
like, this guy's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should be scared of him, right? And then the second movie, they're like, oh, man, he's kind of a victim of his past mental health. And
yeah. And they kind of bring up like all this different past stuff. And the point is he's trying to put it past himself and he's scared of his memories and he's super timid. And a lot of the people in the movie, like in his town, obviously treat him like crap. And by the way, the people like, hey, you psycho, you kill all those people. I'm like, that's not the person I would try to be picking on. It's like the guy who's like, you got out of prison from killing all those people, huh?
Yeah.
Like,
why don't you try and kill me too, sucker?
That's like literally there's a guy in the movie who does that.
But yeah, I mean, you definitely feel like more compassion for the characters. You connect more personally with them. I think that there's a much greater psychological impact, and that leads to much more horrifying effect later.
Yeah, well, you have, of course, Robert Loggia. He plays Norman's counselor sort of guy. And he's like, oh, if you have any issues, just come to me. If people are like, you're having a hard time with anything. And then you have Meg Tilly, who's great. Meg Tilly's like awesome. So 80s. Like all her outfits are insanely 80s. Like the purple like turtleneck thing. This is how teenagers dress, I guess. By the way, this movie, although it was released in 83, definitely like you can pinpoint when it was made. I mean, just the look of the film, the fashion of people, and it's funny. Like basically, whenever they're in the diner and all that stuff, it just gives it away like completely. I think they drink like a lot of Pepsi or something in it.
There's some decent product placement
there. Yeah. And that's one of the famous things about the movie is the absurd product placement in very weird areas in the movie, like when he's putting poison into like the tea. It's
Drink
like
Lipton.
You see like the all the products right there. I'm like, this is like the weirdest placement for this.
No, I don't want the Lipton. I want the poison tea. Right?
Yeah.
I don't want the poison tea. Lipton's not poison. That's the drink Lipton because it's not poison.
Because not poison. He didn't give her that. They do it so well.
You know, they did it so well that we're still talking about their product placement, and now they get free placement with us in this podcast.
Gosh. Man, they get their money's worth out of that.
Brilliant.
But yeah, Norman is basically trying to be a normal person, and he befriends this character and this like girl, and it seems like, oh, everything's going okay. Like this person's being nice to him, but he just constantly encounters people who are being a total jerk to him. And there's a guy who runs this hotel, basically started running the Bates Motel when he was gone. He's literally like, hey, kill me, psycho. Come on. What do you want to murder me? What do you want to stab me to death?
There's a knife. Pick it up.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Pick it up. Pick up the knife.
And like, there's all these kids that go missing, and there are murders happening around Norman.
And he's freaking out.
And he's thinking like, oh, like, am I doing this? Do I not know? Am I still crazy? The character, Meg Tilly plays a character named Mary. And it's this weird thing of where Mary really sees that Norman has tried to change. Like, he's actually genuinely changed. And it turns out that she is related to Marion Crane, like, or distantly, like
Mary's aunt. Basically, Norman Bates killed Mary's aunt.
Yeah, and
Aunt Marion.
And her mom is trying to like convince him that he's crazy. Like, is that like, oh,
trying to get him recommitted.
Yeah, basically trying to make him snap and have a mental breakdown so that he will go back in the hospital and can't be out in the world. Mary is on board with it for a little bit. Like, it's revealed that she's like she was trying to help, make Norman go crazy. But then she's like, no, he's actually changed. Like, Norman's actually not doing things. Like, she's like, I have proof. This kid gets murdered, and she's like, he couldn't have done it. He was locked up there. I'm 100% positive. And you're kind of like, no. I mean, like, the movie kind of plays with, like, was he? Like, yeah. It kind of makes you question it. And
it's kind of a nice effect because a lot of times you can't tell, like, what's real and what's hallucinations. Like, what's his hallucinations that you're sharing with him as a viewer.
Yeah, exactly. And it's done so well. And it really holds up today, I think, in terms of the story.
And the death scenes are super brutal too. I mean, those even though they're limited on the effects that they could use. I mean, it's still like some of them they just make you say, "Oh my god."
Yeah. Well, I think the one that oh god, there's like the knife. That goes into Robert Loggia. Oh, it's like you're like, that hurts. Like every time. And it's so funny because I've watched this movie. Like I said, I watched this a lot, and every time I bring someone in to watch it for the first time, the Robert Loggia death scene where like he falls on a knife and it goes in every single time. Everyone's like, oh.
Yeah, the knife through the mouth got me too. I mean, it was just like,
yeah.
Oh man, that's so awful.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And this does get into some slasher movie territory, definitely. I mean, it was you got to remember, it's starting to compete with those movies. Like the movies that Psycho influenced, like then ended up influencing Psycho to compete. And they're all so crazy, but they're really good. But it's still mostly a psychological film. I mean, even if you just took, like, say you cut the movie to where it just shows the knife being raised and whatever, and it's about to plunge in the person, you cut those out, the gory bits, you would still think it's an amazing movie.
Yeah.
By the way, the hand when Norman Bates is walking towards Mary is like, oh, like, you're my mother or whatever, and stabs his hand. It looks so obviously fake. It's like so bad. Like the skin tone doesn't even look correct.
Oh, when he's getting stabbed in the hand.
Yeah, when he holds up the hand, it's like the big close up. I'm like, why did you do the close up of that? Like it's like the worst hand to do that with. But I love this movie. I think it is great. A lot of the music is just the same music from Psycho. They just reused it. You got to remember, this is also a time when home movie was like not a big thing. So making a sequel to Psycho, a lot of the movies still at that time were putting sequences in the beginning to be like, oh, you probably haven't seen this in a while. Here's what happened.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you got to remember, like, even throughout most of the 80s, a VHS was like $90. And it was really expensive. Even if a movie did get released, it's like, I'm not going to buy it. Like, so, and a property that's that old, it's like, well, we got to catch people up. But there was still enough interest in, of course, Hitchcock that it was like, oh, we can do this. And it's great. In fact, Quentin Tarantino says that he prefers Psycho 2.
That was the friend I referenced.
That was the friend? Yeah. Yeah. I definitely prefer it. I mean, I've introduced more people to it in the last few years that, like, you know, it's totally underrated. And I forget how I don't know. It was probably just one of those things where I was like, I just want to watch them all. I was like, man, this is great.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the only thing, my criticisms of it, of course, are some of the special effects are kind of cheesy. Just like Psycho 1, the acting totally makes up for it. I like that a lot of stuff isn't really redone from the first Psycho, like reused. Of course, there's some shots that are eerily reminiscent of it because
I think they used them well, though. I think that, you know, the shots that are practically the same of like the interior of the house above the stairs and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
right?
Every single movie has to have that, right?
Yeah.
That's a reoccurring thing in all of the Psycho stuff, is this kind of a recreation of the stair shot, the certain angles, which are like, oh, okay, this is a Psycho movie. It has to have these certain things. But yeah, the only thing which and I don't know if it's necessarily the copy that I have like the newer release DVD of it, but I don't know about the coloring sometimes. Sometimes the movie seems a little too desaturated for me, or maybe just not. Maybe it's just the colors or something. That's the only thing that ever seems off to me, and that's only because I'm super big color person. But yeah, they kind of did the opposite spectrum on Psycho 4, where it's like super oversaturated, like all this stuff. But yeah, I guess it's pretty normal for a movie at that time. It kind of looks like a movie at that time. Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, so the only thing that I have a problem with is really the technical aspects of some of the stuff. But other than that, I mean, this movie is gold to me.
Do you think maybe it's because they were having trouble, like, doing film transfers appropriately at first? Like, film transfers to home movie stuff?
Oh, like back in definitely, yeah. I mean, a perfect example is you look at, like, the Back to the Future VHS and, like, the early releases, or even just the early DVD releases. They're all terrible. Blade Runner is, like, infamously really bad DVD when it first came out. But even the more recent versions of Psycho, I don't have the Shout Factory Blu-ray, which is obviously supposed to be like the definitive version of it. I don't have that version, but I do have one of the more recent DVDs, and it still is like, you know, like the color still seems a little off. And it's because Psycho 3 came out so, like, you know, kind of as a response to 2 doing so well, it kind of has a similar sort of thing with it. But yeah, we'll see that. But anyway, Psycho 2. I totally recommend it. Get it any way you can. Surprisingly, I think you'll find it more places than Psycho, just because I think a lot of times it's packaged with 2, 3, and 4, because they're just like, just please buy it. Like, yeah, like, because they're like, it's not the first one, but come on, please. Like, so yeah, you'll see in a lot of those like Psycho movie packs or
bargain bin.
Yeah, definitely around Halloween and stuff. You'll see them all. But it's funny because they always have the collection. It's like Psycho Collection -1. So you can get like, it'll come like the Bates Motel 80s film 2, 3, and 4. And so it's funny. So, but yeah, it's really good. I highly recommend Psycho 2.
If you only have time for one movie, this is the one.
I agree with that. I agree.
Of the Psycho franchise.
Yeah. I agree. It might just sell it. Like, if you don't like black and white, I know some people just don't want to watch black and white movies, or if you thought it was too slow, or it's like, you're like, oh, it's so old, watch Psycho 2. It holds up way more to a modern audience.
Yeah.
Okay, you ready? For Psycho 3. You shouldn't be. It's not that good.
It's the third one.
It's the third one.
That's it.
Yeah.
Roll credits.
It's...
I loved the slapstick intro on this one. The nun scene where they're all being goofy and stuff, and pushing each other down bell towers and
this. Yeah. Okay. So Psycho 3, if Psycho 2 was the exact everybody was expecting it to be just a cheap cash in. This is the cheap cash in.
Yeah.
Absolutely. This was released in 1986, 3 years later, and for back then that was pretty soon. I mean, to be doing that kind of stuff, like pumping out a sequel. And there's something I want to say is that this, basically the second movie started what's called the Emma Spool saga. Yeah, it's like a storyline. It's an arc where at the end of the last movie, you know, like we said, Norma is revealed to not be the actual killer. and he is totally innocent. And it's revealed that everyone who was killed in the movie, I mean, other than who Mary kills, Robert Loggia's character, was done by Norman's real mother, Emma Spool. And nobody knew that was her mother and everything. But because of all the trauma and stuff that he went through, Norman kind of snapped at some point. And when Emma reveals that he is his mother, at the very end of the film, is like, he says, I was your real mother. I killed all those people for you because they were being mean to you. And sure enough, he kills her. But at the beginning of Psycho 3, it picks up pretty much exactly where Psycho 2 leaves off, like a few months later. And
he's got a new mom now.
So he has
she's got a great mom bod.
Oh, God. Ugh. He does have a body that Norman keeps around.
It's true, yeah.
But yeah, so Emma Spool, this is kind of the continuing things. It picks up right after, just like how number 2 picks up 22 years and it's like, this is definitely a sequel. This is definitely a sequel to 2.
Yeah.
And this is the Emma Spool saga, I guess you could say, like, of these two. Psycho 2 was pretty original. Like, it was great, even though there were all these movies that came out that were kind of taking the Psycho thing and then just, like, amping it up to 1,000,000. Psycho 2 was like, okay, this is still really psychological. This is like a mystery. It was really interesting. The reveal at the end, all that stuff, the kind of subverting your expectations. It's so sad that Psycho 3 just looked at what slasher movies were doing and are like, okay, well, let's just do a slasher film.
Yeah, and it comes across as campy sometimes.
Oh, it's bad.
Yeah.
This was directed by Anthony Perkins, who obviously plays Norman, and first time directing, and a lot of people said that he, like, it was really great to be on set with him and stuff. He had a lot of weird ideas for this movie, and he later admitted that he's like, oh, maybe I kind of bit off more than I could chew. Like with this, he just wasn't prepared to be a director. This movie's just weird. I mean, it's just weird. There's a lot more, like, there's always hints of, like, erotic things in Psycho movies, whether it's Psycho 1, 2, 4,
peeping and
there's obviously elements that this goes way overboard.
Yeah,
this is like, you're gonna see quite a bit of nudity. There's gonna be a lot of references to pornography, a lot of references to sex,
it's kind of gratuitous, and by kind of I mean a lot. It's very gratuitous.
Yeah, it was sad because when I came out, I saw Psycho 2 like years ago, and I never watched Psycho 3. I started it a whole bunch of times and I never finished it. And then the first time I actually finished it, I was like, that was Psycho 3. That was it.
Yeah.
Still watching it, I almost thought even less of it today than when I first watched it.
They definitely should have spent more time trying to be creepy than trying to be sexy, and it shows.
Yeah, and they were definitely trying. It really feels like they were trying to be sexy a lot of the time.
So, plot, right? This nun is involved in the death of another nun. She gets kicked out of the convent. She goes searching for some sort of place to stay or whatever, ends up meeting this drifter. He tries to pick up on her. She's not having it. She leaves. They both end up at the hotel somehow. The drifter has picked up a job there.
Yeah, Norman hires the drifter to kind of watch the... And come on, this guy is a real scummy guy. Like, obviously, a guy who tries to rape a woman, like, trying to... Like, as soon as he meets her...
Yeah, let's not mince words. He's gonna rape her if...
Yeah. I mean, come on. His name's Dwayne.
Yeah.
And then we have Maureen. God, Dwayne Duke.
Dwayne Duke. If your name is Dwayne Duke, we want to hear from you. Tell us about how not an a-hole you are. Yeah.
And then you have the character Maureen Coyle. And there's a whole thing where when she shows up, he's like, oh, she looks like Marion Crane. And she has the same initials. I was like, that's so what? Like, tell me no woman has like initials MC.
Well, it's because they wrote it that way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous.
They're like, hey, see what we did? Look how clever we are.
Yeah, right? But basically, so like Dwayne shows up and it basically just boils down to there's like some big parties and stuff and people keep coming into Norman's life and he just keeps murdering him. I mean, that's essentially it. I mean, a lot of it's like,
oh, but this time around, because of the opening scene and she's, an ex-nun or whatever, there's this weird like chanting that's supposed to sound satanic or something in the background that there's no real explanation for, other than, oh, she's a nun. She's not involved when it's happening necessarily, so it's something that's going through his head or being used as a dramatic thing for the sound. So you're not really sure if it's something that's just in the movie for effect, or if it has to do with actually what's going through his mind. And if it's going through his mind, why? Because he has no history of, there's like, I don't know if they're just trying to play on demonic possession as a trope or what, but it just was like, why all of a sudden is there this weird chanting happening?
I don't know. Well, all the religious stuff is just totally ridiculous, where it's so unnecessary, and I don't know, it's just feels totally out of place. This just took too long to get going in the first place. It's just not interesting. I mean, Duke is kind of he's not a bad actor, but I don't know. I don't really care for the woman in this film, like the character who played the nun and Maureen, and I don't know. It all felt really just boring or standard, very standard horror movie. And the kills, by the way, it doesn't make any sense. Like, there's the one. Okay, there's literally a scene where Norman kills a woman on the toilet.
Just because.
There's no reason. There's absolutely, in fact, it's the only person who is like sober and not partying is like totally like, oh, hey. And then just like, why? What?
Yeah. They don't really focus on the motivation so much in this one.
No. And they were just, all the kills just, like I said, it's just a typical slasher movie. It's like you took a great series that was going by that point, and it's like, now it's a slasher movie. And
I mean, you can understand why he killed Mrs. Spool in the last one, right? I mean, she totally screwed his life up, and like he's trying to be better and whatever,
and all the stuff that he'd been going through, where he's like basically being tortured the entire film by everybody else.
Yeah, and you're just like, okay, finally he snapped or whatever. There's a good reason. I mean, not saying that killing anybody ever is a good reason, but like
for the character,
it makes complete sense as to why he did it. But then, like, oh, okay, he's just going to kill everybody now. That's kind of like what number 3 is. Like, oh, he's just going to kill whoever.
I know.
Is convenient at the time.
And there's the whole thing with, like, all the birds, too. Like, they keep the... Like, in the first movie, he talks about, oh, yeah, like, I stuff animals, whatever, and talks about this sawdust, and, like, he stuffs birds.
Yeah, he prefers birds to animals.
Yeah. And then inside this one, they show, like, right in the beginning, okay, if in the first movie he was kind of weird, like, you're like, oh, this guy's kind of weird, and he's kind of creepy. Second one is like, you're like, oh, he's so sympathetic.
Yeah.
And then inside at least in the context of that film, and then this one, you're like, Norman sucks. Like,
he's a terrible person.
He's awful. He's horrible. And, like, everything about him is awful. And he just comes off as totally, completely unhinged throughout the whole film, and he's not really that likable. In fact, it almost is kind of stupid on the part. They brought back the sheriff actor. The actor, he's from 2 and 3. You're just like, wow, this is like negligence at this point. Like, there's like a scene where he kills this girl and stuffs her in the ice box, and the policeman is like,
grabbing bloody ice out of the icebox.
Yeah, he's grabbing, like, he's talking to Norm. He's like, oh, that'd be ridiculous if Norm was murdering people. And so he's grabbing the ice. It's all full of blood. He's putting his mouth. I'm like, okay, first of all, you probably taste the blood on the ice. Like,
right.
That is so stupid. But
so I will say, the actress that played, of course, now I can't remember her name.
Yeah. Or Maureen.
Yeah. Okay. How many movies have we talked about so far? The actress that played Maureen, apparently when she was in the icebox, that wasn't makeup making her look blue. She was actually in ice.
Oh, that wasn't Maureen. That's just one of the random chicks he kills.
Wait, no, oh, okay.
That's like the phone booth girl, I think.
Is it?
I'm pretty sure.
Man, I stopped paying attention.
I know. This movie sucks.
Let's try that again. So whoever's in the icebox was actually in an icebox. And apparently that's not makeup making them look cold and clammy. And
yeah, they were freezing.
They were actually really, really cold. And then the other thing that I was like, oh, that was a nice touch. when Norman's going up the stairs after somebody, Maureen this time. Yeah. So when he's going up the stairs after Maureen, and she's like backing away up the stairs and she's like fumbling against the wall, and then she like moves the picture out of place and it's like askew. As he's coming up, he doesn't even look at it, but he reaches out and fixes it as he's coming up the stairs. Like, okay, that was a nice touch.
Yeah,
that was a nice touch. Like, that's crazy person right there. That's like he's so in character in that moment.
I know.
But
he was I mean, you could tell he was. You could tell he was still into it. I mean, and that was good. It just feels like a cash grab. It feels like this was going to be like some kind of blockbustery type film, and a lot of that psychological stuff is just gone. Like, it's just like, oh yeah, we know who it is, we know whatever, and the movie doesn't try to do anything to convince you that it's anybody but Norman. Like, it's like they're like, oh well, you don't see him. It's like, we know it's Norman. Like, it's very obviously Norman. Like,
there's no twists or turns in this road, man. It is straight through the middle of a desert.
Yeah. In fact, the basic plot of the movie could be, I mean, there is a little bit of stuff like you can only really talk about just specific scenes because it's just like, it's one of those movies where it just sets up a scene for a murder and then just kind of keeps on going.
Oh, okay, yeah. The one scene, the suicide attempt.
Well, that one. Well, yeah. There's like
I was like, okay, like that was done all right.
Yeah, there's like a thing where he gives the same room to Maureen, whatever, and then he comes back later and is like gonna kill like the shower scene, and then when he pulls back the curtain to the shower, it's like she's trying to commit suicide. She slit her wrists, and you're like, oh, okay, that's like you subverted my expectation, but then. They
don't really do anything with it.
No, they don't. And then there's the whole thing about like Dwayne Duke captures his mom, and then like Norman just fights him and gets her back.
Yeah, and Dwayne Duke is obviously like a different kind of crazy, but they don't explore that at all either. It's just like you only find out about it practically at the end of the movie.
I know,
for like 5 minutes worth of scene,
and then Norman just kills him. It's like and then it's like such a stupid death too. It's like. Just holds him underwater and whatever. I'm like, do you think he's like, oh, he's gonna come back? And you're like, nope, he's just dead. Norman killed him. And you're like, God, really? Like, it was everything about this movie is just so disappointing. But yeah, at the end, hey, want to know the plot? Norman from the last movie killed his mom, and now he's back to killing more people. In the end, he gets arrested and is two slices again. That's the end.
That's it.
And it's like, okay. I sneeze. It's terrible. I mean, don't get me wrong. Okay, I will say if you want a slasher movie that I guess is not just what you've seen a million times and is competent, I guess. I say that.
Put it on the background for your next party.
Yeah, there you go. By the way, there's that weird scene where Duke is all naked and sweaty and swinging the lamps around the room. What's up with that? You know what's happening, right? Where he's the two lamps. He's like pointing the lamps.
Well, he's just trying to do sexy lighting for the lady that he's brought back to the room.
Apparently, Anthony Perkins wanted him to be completely nude, and the compromise was like, no, I'm gonna hold these lamps.
I'm gonna hold these lamps in front of myself.
So stupid.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it doesn't make any sense. There's like he's taped pornography up all over the walls, which apparently Norman's fine with.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's just too weird.
It is
it's
weird.
Too weird. Yeah. And we like a lot of weird stuff. This is just not that kind of weird. Yeah.
It's just the other stuff was so good. Even number 4, I know we're not talking about today, but even number 4, it kind of disregards the
retcon.
Well, like, yeah, it kind of just is like, nah, with 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Well, it's weird because it makes some references to like some of the events that happened in those films, but it's kind of like more of a sequel to number 1. It's number 3 is just totally the misfit in this quadrilogy, I guess you call it, or whatever. But yeah. Oh, also, I guess if you want to see Psycho in color, you can watch the 1998 remake with Vince Vaughn as Norman Bates.
I mean, you could do that, yeah.
Yeah. So I'd mention that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's Psycho 3.
Oh, I got one more thing I appreciated in Psycho 3.
What was it?
They did some interesting transitions. So like when you're looking at the bottom of the light coming under the door and it's a knife,
Oh yeah.
That kind of thing. Like that was like one of the positive things that he contributed
They did. It's funny because they do that a lot in the movie too. Yeah. Like pretty much everything's like a gimme transition. Like,
so I thought that some of that stuff was pretty clever, but I mean you can't make a whole movie out of just that, right? It's all got to come together, and it really didn't.
Yeah. Anyway, if we ever talk about Psycho again, it'll be psychotic. There's a whole bunch of Psycho stuff out there.
There is.
Oh, by the way, I don't know if it's still there, but you could go to the set at Universal Studios Hollywood, and it was the set of Psycho 3.
Didn't they move the original house?
Okay, there's a whole thing I watched about the Psycho house where who even knows what part of because it's a facade, and who even knows which part of it is even the real original house anymore?
Oh, sure.
And like they think it was like butchered and put into like a whole bunch of other movies and then like changed for a whole bunch of other things, and yeah, who even knows? I don't even know. There's a whole documentary.
If you replace each plank of a boat one plank at a time, right?
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
So that's sort of but I think they just rebuilt it or built like a new one for like Psycho 2 and 3. But I know that whatever the props they had for Psycho 3 were like part of the tram ride thing where you would pass by the Bates Motel and then you would see Norman come out. He'd be like moving a body or something, and he would come out with a guy dressed as Norman would come out with a knife and then would start walking towards the tram. So
nice.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool Psycho 3 piece of trivia. You can watch it on YouTube too. I don't know if I remember going on the ride and seeing the Psycho house, but I don't know when they stopped doing that.
Yeah, me neither.
So that was the first 3 Psychos. What a weird series. Well, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode.
No.
Had you seen these ones? Had you seen 3 or 2?
No, I hadn't seen 2 or 3. Yeah, so it was just like, okay, I'm gonna rewatch number 1 and then 2 and 3. And 2, I was like, oh man, this is really good.
I know.
And I was like, I'm really excited to watch number 3.
Oh, that's everyone's thing. Because it leads up into it. It literally leads up to such a good ending in 2. Yeah. I remember the first time I saw it, I was so disappointed.
Oh, why does he take Mrs. Spool's arm with him if he's trying to escape her?
I don't know. Well, there's a whole thing. Like even Psycho 4, it's like they never want to commit to like being like, oh, he's fine. They always want to have the ability to make the next one. And even Psycho 4 has like a really weird thing where, is it still going? Like they have a part of the movie where it's like it could definitely end right there. You'd be like, oh, that's great. But then they had to have like the little,
but what if?
I know that's so annoying. Yeah, God, I hate that. By the way, how'd the police let him get the arm into the car? Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, you would have thought that they searched him. I don't know how he held it while they were handcuffing him. I don't know why he would have brought it if he was saying, that like his lines, the last lines are like him saying he's finally going to be free, except he brings the arm of the person who's been talking to him in his head with him in the car. Like, I don't know if that's just like a, memento of a battle won.
No.
And if so, why an arm? Why not like her Sunday best or hat? Or
I don't know. So stupid. Anyway, that was Psycho, and I hope you've enjoyed this episode of GothCast. Like I said, they're available on DVD and physical media and most streaming services, but especially with number 1, because Hitchcock, you're probably going to have to pay to rent it or something, or just buy it on DVD. You usually find the DVD really cheap, but that's up to most people. Don't even have a disc player anymore, so yeah. Anyway, this has been GothCast, and of course you can like, comment, review iTunes reviews, and you can win that doll, and like you get the video, which is just like pretty much pictures on YouTube, and that's pretty much it. I mean, just hope you've enjoyed this one, and we'd be doing a movie episode again, but got me watching Psycho series again.
And me for the first time.
Boom.
As a series.
Boom.
I don't know how to make this.
Boom.
I don't know how to make the sound of a mic drop without actually dropping a mic, and I mean, that might work. I don't want to have to replace a mic.
I understand.
If you own the mic, you typically aren't the one dropping it.
It's true. Oh, gosh, isn't that true? yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode. And of course, make sure to stay tuned for next episode. You thought I was going to say spooky, but I didn't. But okay, make sure to stay spooky.